Hey my dear friends, welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial I'm gonna teach you how to make this login form, registration, logout, profile. It's like a complete dashboard, and we use PHP to create this PHP in MySQL. So let's see what we are going to make. So this is my login page. And if I'm a new user, I can create a new account. For example, I make an account, I call it Jack, something like this. I make an email and I make a password. Let's register, and now I need to log in with that email address and password. So if I put a wrong password, I get an error, but if I log in with the right password, I go to my dashboard, and there it is, says hello dear Jack, and your role is a user. If I try to go back to index.php to the login page, I can't because I'm already logged in. And if I click logout, I'm just go back to the login page. If I try to access the home page, I can't do that. So this is what we want to build in this tutorial. So maybe this tutorial could be a little bit longer than usual, but we need to do a lot of work. So let's don't miss a lot of time and create this application. First, we go to PHP MyAdmin. Make sure to run the XAMPP to run PHP on your computer. Once you have run the XAMPP, you have to run the XAMPP, okay? First of all, once you have run the XAMPP, you need to create a database. In this case, I created a database called test, and inside this database, I created this table with this information. But I'm going to delete this table, and I create everything from scratch. So go to your database, I create a table with 7 columns, and I call it PHP users. Okay, this is my table name. Let's create inside this one. First I have ID, and this is integer. Make sure to use this one, AI and primary. Then I need to create a unique ID, and this is varchar 100. Then I need to create a first name, and this is also varchar 100. Then last name, varchar 100. Then the email address, varchar 100. Then the password, and this is also varchar 100. And then at the end, the rule, because we can have the users, the editors, the admins. For this reason, I use rule. Okay, everything is good. Click on go. Where it is? Click on save. My table is created. My table with with the name of PHP users, and this is the columns. Now we we create a folder. I call it PHP. I call it login, register, something like that. Okay, this is the folder. I open the Visual Studio Code. This is the code, but I want to start everything from the scratch, so I close this one, and I drag and drop my folder into it. And now the first thing I have to create is the registration page. So but before doing that, we have to make a connection with the database. So I make a folder. I call my folder config, and inside this folder I make a file. I call it db for database.php, and inside this db we create the connection with the database. Okay, how you can do that? We start with the PHP. Okay, first of all, I have to use the database configuration. First of all, my database host which is localhost in this case because I use XAMPP, and then my DB username, and in this case because it is XAMPP and the username is root, and then my database password. And I don't have any password. In the XAMPP you don't have a password, but if you use a host like HostGator or something else, you have to check your dashboard admin page to see what is your password. And then the database name. My database name is test, as you can see here, it's called test. Okay, once we have done that, I also make a variable name for my table. Maybe you have a lot of tables, so you have to make a variable for your table. This is table admin, and my table name is PHP users, and later we use this variable name inside my syntax, because maybe you change the table name, or for any reason you don't have to change the table name everywhere on your code. You just come here and change it once, it will be changed for everything. Okay, then I make directories. These things are really important, okay, because there are things we use again and again on many pages, but if tomorrow we want to change something, for example, I make my registration page called register.php, but tomorrow I want to change the registration page to something like sign up, and I have to go to each page which redirects me or link to the registration page name, and I have to change everything page by page, and that's really boring. So for that reason, if you make variable names for those things and include them all inside your db.php, and then if you change anything on the future, you just come here and change it once and it will be changed for everything. That makes your job much easier. Okay, the first thing is the domain. This is where I'm located, so let's go to my projects, and this is your host in this case. Okay, if you use a website, this could be the name of your website. Then I make the name of my login page. This is the page I'm gonna make later. In this case, I don't make login.php, I make my login page index.php, so make sure to name it here. If tomorrow you want to change the login page like login or sign in something, you just come here and change it, and it will be changed for everywhere that name is used, it will be changed. Okay, and then my register page, and this is, I will make it called register.php. These are the pages we will create in a moment. And then my logout page, and that could be logout.php. And then what I need is the dashboard page, which in this case I call it home.php. These are the names which we use them later on our code. Okay, enough talking. Now let's create database connection. To make the database connection, you can make a variable called you can call it whatever you want, and I use MySQLi, and the first argument is your database host, DB host. The second one is the database username, DB username, and after that your password, DB password, and then at the end the database name, DB name. And this will make a connection to MySQL. We also need to check if there's an error. We make sure to check the connection. If $com or the connection got any error, connect error. If there is any error, we want to use die, and it will print that message like say connection failed. And I also want to print the error message itself. Use a connection. From the connection I use connect a error. Okay, there's a problem. We have to make it like this. Let's save and come here, go to my config db. Okay, there's a problem. It says token on line 26. Line 26. What is the problem? okay, I didn't use this semicolon or whatever it is in here. Let's save and run it again, and now it works. But anybody can come to db.php, and if there is something like echo or whatever, they can watch it. In this case, we don't need this trick, but I show you a good trick. So you could access your page, and you can access it like from here. You should access from another file with a locker. I call it a locker. I use f at the beginning of your code. Use makeof function. I call it locker equal to 1, and put your all code inside this one. So now it not even run this code, okay? From when I include this file from another page, I have to say the locker is 1. If I set the locker to 1, it will execute this code. Otherwise, it won't be executed. Okay, that's really good. It's a good way to make your code something like this. Okay, enough talking. Let's come to back to my main page, and I create the registration page. So as you remember, we called my registration page register.php. So we make it same as this name, register.php. So come to my register.php file. Inside this register.php file, I start PHP, and the first thing I have to do is to include the database connection. I have to include the database configuration file. As you remember, first of all, I have to set the locker to 1 or it won't be run. So I set the locker to 1, and then I say include once inside this config folder, config/db.php, my database configuration file name. Okay, once we have done that, now we have to check if the user is already logged in or not. If the user is already logged in, how we can do that? That's very easy. We use session. Session is something which stores a data inside your browser. But if you close the browser, the data will be deleted. Okay, so we started the session first. Session start. We have to start the session. Then we use F to check set. If the session is set, $session, and my session name will be the ID. I want to check for the ID. If any session with the name of ID is set, what it does, it should redirect me to the home page, to the dashboard page, because I'm already logged in. How you can do that? Use header, and I say location, and if I use here home.php, if tomorrow I change this homepage something, I have to come back here and change it again. For that reason, we created these variables. So we use it once. If tomorrow I change the homepage to something like dashboard.php or profile.php, I can do it from here, and it will affect everything, and I don't need to repeat it into every page. So just put your variable name $dashboard.php. Because we included this db.php, we can use that variable name. Okay, once we have checked if the user is logged or not, then we have to register the user. But before doing that, we have to create a form, because if we come back here inside this register page, we don't have anything. We need to create a form first, then we make the functionality for that one. So we use HTML5 basic structure. I call it register, and inside here I have to create the form. So I use Bootstrap to make the job easier and makes everything much beautiful. So just Google the Bootstrap CDN and you will get this two links. You just have to paste it here. I use the Bootstrap main CSS and main.js. Once you have done that, the next thing I need to use is to create a container. I just copy paste to make everything much easier. So first of all, we make a container, and then we create a row. If you know Bootstrap, you have to understand Bootstrap to know this. If you don't know what's Bootstrap, make sure to watch my other tutorials. I talked enough about Bootstrap and I have tutorials for that one. So we create a container. Inside this container we create row, and then we create 2 columns, and inside this column will be my form. Okay, this is a simple we have to close these divs. Okay, I have to close 3 divs. This is not an HTML or Bootstrap tutorial, that's why I do this really fast. You have to understand, if you want to know about how to create the structure, there is a tutorial about it on my channel. You can watch that one. And this tutorial is specific for the functionality, the PHP one. Okay, so we use the class this is the form. Okay, let's come here and select. We have first name, last name. To register, we need to create the first name, last name, email, and password. So I copy 2 other things also. We have the first name and last name. We create email address, and we also have to create the password. Okay, type is password, name is password, okay, input, example input, password, this one. Okay, the most important thing in here is the name. The name of this one is first name, the name of this one is last name, the name of this one is email, the name of this one is password. But we don't have a form. Everything should be inside a form. So we have to create a form. In here, I make a form method form, and I give it the method of post. Now we have a form. We have to close our form in here. Okay, now let's see how it looks. There you go. We have first name, last name, email address, password. We have everything, but we don't have the button to register. Okay, let's create the register button. I create an input. The type of this input is submit, and I give it a class btn primary. I give it the name of register. This name is really important. Okay, this name is important, register, and the value it should be register. Let's see how it looks, and there we go. We have the registration, but we need a text here to if you want to log in, go to the login page. Let's create that one also. We create a paragraph, and I say if you have account, I use a tag href, and okay, and then I say login. Close the a first, and then close the paragraph tag. Okay, and if I want to log in, I have to go to the login page, and here I can type index.php to go to the login page, but we created these variables, if you remember, so we use the login page, and we use PHP to echo that, PHP echo, and save. Now if you want to log in, you can click and you go to index.php. Okay, now we have our registration form, and we have to give it functionality so you can be able to register. But before doing that, if there's any problem, we have to print the error. So for that reason, I use the Bootstrap called alert, and I use that one. I use something like called alert, a div with a class of alert, and this is a beautiful alert kind of thing. But first we check if is set if there is something called error message, which we create at the moment. We create it a few minutes later. Then we echo this warning, and inside the body of this alert we print the error message. Okay, it doesn't run now, but if there's a problem it will be run. Okay, now come back to my PHP section. I come back to my PHP section, and now we're going to register the user. Register the user. First of all, we check if the register button is pressed. This button, which has a name of register, we have to check if it's pressed. If is set, if that is set or pressed, I say post. What is post? The register button. If that's post, do this. What I want to do, first of all, as I remember, we created this error message. We have to create that one. I set the error message to nothing because we don't have any error at the moment. If we have an error, we will assign that to this error message. After that, we have to get the data, this data, the first name, last name, email, and password. How you can do that? I make a variable called first name, and this is equal to post the name of that input, and the name is first name, so we put it here, the first name. And just like that, we can get the name, email, and password, but this is not the greatest way to do because it's not safe. Any user can come and use the SQL injection. So how you do it in a safer way? Inside the PHP, you have a function called MySQLi real escape string. This function, MySQLi real escape string, and you have to use the database connection for this one, which is this $.con. So put that one, $.con, and comma. After that, use $post first name. It will filter any specific thing, okay? Anything that's bad for you, your website. So we have 4 things: the first name, last name. Okay, what's the last name? The last name, the email, which is this email, and the password, which is also password. So we get all of this data from this form when we store it inside these variables. Once we have done that, we have to create a unique ID for our user, because if you see the table, we have something called unique ID. We have to create a unique ID for our user. How you can do that? I make a variable called unique ID, and I use rand to generate a random number. Then we have the rule, and rule of a default user is user. If it's admin, you can create admin. Okay, once that's done, we have to hash our password. We don't want to store the exact password into the database. So I have to turn the password to a hash form, the hash form of the password. So just type your password variable name and use inside the PHP. I have a function called password hash. This one. Use that one and pass your password. This one. And comma, and now you have to set something, the type of hash, which kind of hash you want. In this case, I want to use the default one, so it's called password default. You can also use bycrypt and other things, but I want to use the default one. That's how it will hash your password in the default mode. Okay, once you have done that, now I wanna go to the database and check if there is another user with this information. I don't register this user, okay? And I say this user exists. How you can do that? Because you have to make a connection with our table. So I create a SQL, and I say select everything from where? From your table name. If you remember, my table name is inside this. I made a variable for this one, table name, table admin, and where the email is equal to the email we posted, this one. Okay, it will go and check if this email is equal to that email, and we have to execute this SQL. Execute, and we use MySQLi MySQLi query, and I use connection and my SQL query, and this will execute this query for us. Okay, after that I'm going to check email and password, and also we check if user exists. The first thing I have to go do is to check if this email is validate or not, and then I check if the password is validate or not, and once those things are correct, then we also check if the user exists or not. Then we process to register the user. So let's first use f function. I use a function called filter variable, filter var, and inside this one first I want to check the email. I put the email, and then I use the filter validate, something like this, validate email, and this will check if this is a valid email or not. Okay, if it is not a valid email, we use this one. This is for not. If this is not a valid email, we set this error message, we assign a message to it, and we say email is not valid, try again. And then we use else if, because we want to check something else also. We use strlen to check the length of the password. If the length of the password is smaller than 6, this password is really weak and we don't want to do that, so we set the error message to password should be 6 digits, should be more than 6 digits. It will print this message for us. And we also want to check something else, and we use again the f function, and now I want to check if the user exists or not. If you remember before, we use this SQL query, and we also execute that one, and from the execute we can access this execute now act as an object, and from this one we can access the name rows, which is equal to num rows. It says this if it does exist, this will print 1. If this is not true, it will print 0. So we say if this is equal to 1, we set the error message once again to this email is already exist. Okay, and at the end we use else. If there's any problem. This else is for okay, I think no, let me check what is the problem. Okay, there we use else if none of this is true. If none of this is true, now we can register the user. So inside this else we insert the data to the database. So we insert user data to database. How we can do that? I use a query, and this query is a little bit long. I say insert into my table name, which is table admin, and inside this table admin we have these columns. We have to use these names in here. I want to insert the unique ID, the first name, the last name, the email, the password, and the rule. Make sure this name should be the exact same thing as here, as your table, the column name inside your PHP MyAdmin. This should be exactly as this. Okay, once you have done that, now we say the values. Now we put the values. Okay, what are the values? Again, we open a bracket, and now we use this data, these names. Okay, first of all, I want to insert the unique ID, which is this one, unique ID, put this semicolon or whatever it is, and comma, make sure to add a dollar because it's a variable, and copy this one. Let's make everything a little bit easier, so I put it inside another line of code, and then we put another one, another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need 6 of this. And the second one is the first name, and the first name is this one, then the last name, then the email address, then the password, and at the end we need the rule. This is the values, and these values comes from here, okay, but these values are from your table, inside your table, okay. You shouldn't miss those things with each other. Okay, the query is completed. Now all we need to do is to execute this query. How you can do that? I make a variable, I call it result, and this is equal to MySQLi query, and I use connection $count and my query name, which is query. This will execute this SQL for us. Once you have done that, it means the user data has been inserted inside the database. We insert everything into the database, okay, which means we are registered. So now we check if the result is true, which means if we are registered, then we want to redirect the user to a page, and the page name is the login page. You want the user to log in because the user is registered. Else, if that's not the case, you want to print a message. So we use this error message, and we print you are not registered. Please try again. Let's try again. Okay, let's save it and see if it works or not. We don't have any user. We come to the registration page. I say the name is Ali, Aslan Ali at gmail.com. I put a random password, and I click on register, and it redirects me to the index.php, which we didn't create it yet. But if we come to the browser, you see our data has been posted. We have the ID, unique ID, everything is on the database, which means our registration is completed and it's working great. Now it's time to create the login page, which I named it index.php. Now it's time to create the login.php. Okay, really fast, we'll create a page called login.php, and to make our job easier, I copy this HTML part and paste it here. I just change the registration to login, and I come here, I change this if you have an account to something else. I change it to maybe are you new user, and I change this login page to this one, register page, and I change this one to register. Okay, I don't need this name and first name and last name. All I just need is the email address and password. I change the value of this one to login and the name to login. So whenever we press this button, it will post this login, which is what we use to log in the user. Let's see how it looks. Index.php. Okay, we create this. Okay, I call it login.php. Sorry, this should be index.php. And there we go. Now we have the this you. Now we have the login page, and if I click on register, it's not going to register because we didn't include it the database yet. So the first thing I have to do is to open the PHP tag and from the registration page I copy this part, I include the database connection to my index.php, and now if I click on register, I go to the registration page. If I click on login, now I'm login page. Okay, and just like before, we copy this section of code also to check if the user is already logged in or not. If it's login, so we redirect him to the dashboard page. And just like that, we copy this section, login the user, and we change this post to login. That is the name of our button. Okay, we set the error message to nothing, and now it is time to create the login. So how you can log in the user? Just like before, we have to get this information, the email and password, and we can use, just copy this one. Okay, now we get the email and the password. Once we've got those information, we also check if they are empty or not. How we can do that? We use if empty what? The email. If the email is empty, or sorry, not empty. Okay, this one is for not. This one is for not. If not empty, the password. If none of them are empty, we will execute this code. Okay, what we do if they are not empty? We check if email exists on database. If the user is the email of this email exists or not. So we create a query, and this query is equal to select everything from table admin $table admin, and where email is equal to $email. We check if this email exists or not. We have to execute this one. So I make something called result, and this is equal to, I use MySQLi query connection and my query. This will execute the code. And now we have to check if this email exists or not. So we use if MySQLi num rows, and put this result inside of this one. And if this email exists, it will output 1. If not, it will output 0, which is also called true or false. If this email exists, which means now we can log in. If not, we can't log in, right? So if the email exists, we have to fetch password hash from the table. We have to fetch this hash of the password, this thing. Okay, so how you can do that? Okay, how you can do that? That's really easy. We use while. Inside this while, we create a variable called row, and so is equal to MySQLi fetch suck, and inside this one we pass the result, which is this query. Okay, once we use while, and everything from this result will be stored inside this row, and we can use this row to fetch the password. So we check if there's a function inside the PHP. If we have used inside the registration, we use this password hash. Now to decode the password, we use a function called password verify. Inside this one, you have to pass the password, and with that you have to now pass the password from the hash of that password, which is inside our database. That's why we used while to fetch that one from the database. So we stored the result inside the row, so you can use $row. Inside this one, the name of your column, the name of the password column, which is password. If your column name is something else, make sure to use that name. Okay, if this is correct, if this password and email address is correct, now we create a session. Session is used so user stays logged in until the browser is not closed yet. So we use session, and we create a session with the name of ID, and we equal this one. From this row we use the exact same ID from this database, which is this ID. So we put the name of ID here. So we store the ID inside the session called ID. Now we have to redirect the user to the dashboard. Location dollar this name. Where is the dashboard? This is the dashboard. We put it here. Okay, yes, completed. But we also output some message, because here we used if the email is empty or things like that. So if we start from here, if the password is not correct, we use else, and we set the error message email or password is invalid. So invalid. We print this message, and we come here, and from here we can see if the user exists or not. If the user not exists, we print no user found on this email. This is from here. Okay, if this is not 1, this is 0, which means this user not exists. Okay, that's enough. Let's save and see if the login works or not. We created a user with this email address. Now we use that one to login. Let me put something wrong, and it says email password is invalid. Now let's put the exact password. Click on login. Now I'm inside home.php. If I try to go back to index.php, I can be. This is because I used session. Okay, I didn't create it home page yet, but the index itself redirects me to this page because I created a session. A session is stored on my browser. Now I have to make something to log out my page. So I make another file. I call it logout.php to make the logout page. And logout is really easy and simple. Okay. All we need to do is, first of all, I want to check if the session is not set. It's set $session in the session name, which is ID. If this session not exist, I have to start the session. Okay, session start, something like this. Okay, I check if this session not exist, I will start the session, and then I have to log out. We destroy the sessions. To do that, we use a function called session and set, this function, and we also use another function called session destroy. Session destroy, and we redirect the user to a location, to index, to the login page, which is this one. But you can use it yet because we didn't include it the database, so we have to include our database page here to use this variable name. Now if I say logout.php, it will destroy the session and I will be logged out, and there we go. Now you can register or log in. Okay, the video became really long, but we have created a lot of things. Now all we need to do is to create the profile page. In this case, I named that profile page home.php, so I have to create home.php. Once we are logged in, we will redirect to this page, and this is the page where we print everything you want, but in this case I want to make a simple page which will print the username and his role inside a cart, a Bootstrap cart, and that's it. And also a button so user can use it to log out from their account. So first of all, we open the PHP. First we have to include the database. Copy paste that one. We have included the db.php, and then we check if the user logged in or not, just like before, but this time it's the reverse. Last time we use is set. If this is set, we have to go to the dashboard. Now we want to check if not. This means not. Okay, if this session is not set, we will redirect the user to the login page, which is this one. Login, this one, the login page. Okay, now we use the reverse of this one. If the session is not set, we redirect the user to the login page. Okay, because we already set the session ID inside the login page here. We create a session called ID. We can now get that session and store it inside a variable called ID. Session ID. Now we have the ID of user, and now we can use this ID to fetch some information. So I make a query, and I equal this one, select everything from table admin, and where the ID is equal to $ID. So wherever the ID is equal to this ID, I want to get the information of that specific column. Okay, we have to execute this one. How we can do that? I make a variable called result, and this is equal to MySQLi query. I use the connection and the query itself. This will execute this query for us. Once you have done that, now we have to check if there is something like this or not. If there is such user or not. So we use f MySQLi and numbers to see if there is something like this or not. From the result, we pass the result here, and if this one is equal to true or 1, which means this query is correct. There is something inside the database, the table. So now we can fetch the information. We can fetch the email address, the name, last name, and etc. How we can fetch that? We use while. Inside this while, we make a variable. I call it row, and this is equal to a function called MySQLi fetch a sock, and we pass the result in here. Okay, and now we can use this variable name called row to fetch these informations. These informations. Okay, how we can do that? Okay. First of all, we create you can just use row and ID. This will get the ID for you. If I pass the first name, it get the first name. You got the idea. But I want to store this information inside a variable. I say ID database. This is equal to row ID, which means this ID is from the database, because we already have another ID, this one, which is from the session. We don't want to mix these things. So the next thing I need to fetch is the unique ID, Unicode ID, and I can say database. Use the database attached to that so you can understand this comes from where. Unicode ID, and just like that, I want to create another one, first name database, and this is equal to $row first name. This name is exactly should be the same as this name. Okay, and then I create another one, last name database. This is equal to row last name, and then we have the rule database. Okay, database, and this is equal to row the rule. You see the name of this one is rule. Yeah, the rule. the row. Now we fetch every information from this user, every information of this user from this table, and we store those information inside these variables. Now we can use them anywhere in our page as we want. Okay, let's create a simple HTML5 page. I call it profile. You can call it, I give it a title of profile. Once again, I want to include the Bootstrap library, and then I use something called the Bootstrap cart to make a beautiful cart. Just go to Bootstrap website, then copy this one. Okay, but we have to put them inside a container. So before doing that, I create a div. I call it container fluid, and inside this one I give it some padding, and inside this one I have to create a row, a div with a class of row, and inside this row I make another div with a class of column. Inside this column I put my cart, in this cart as an image, and I don't have an image, so I remove that one. Okay, and instead of the cart title, I want to print a message, hello there. Now I fetch every information from the database that I want to use to print the user first name here. So I use PHP to echo the first name. Maybe I also attach the last name. This is the last name. Copy that one and paste it here. Database, and that's it. Okay, let's see how it looks. I'm inside my login page. If I try to go to home.php, I can't go here because I used to check if the user is logged or not. Now I want to log in. Now when I log in, as you can see, now we print the username and last name in the home page. Let's put some space between name and last name and save, and there we go. We printed LOD. Let's also print the rule in here. So instead of this message, I echo the rule, echo rule database, and there we have it. The rule is user. Let's also print a message, your rule is, and I change this button to logout, and I use the name of logout, which is this one, and here I use the PHP to echo this variable name. And now if I refresh, as you can see, we printed hello dear Aslan and your release user. This information comes from the table. If I try to go to the index.php, I can because I'm already logged in. But if I click logout, I'm inside the login page. And if now I try to go to home page, I can because I'm not logged in. And that's how you can make a PHP login page, registration page, and also a profile page, which has which fetch the information of the user and print that here. You can maybe make more things with it and maybe add more information like profile picture and etc. If you want me to do those things, you can put me up, tell me at the comment, and I will do those things also for you. We also created this logout pattern. Anytime we press, it will destroy the session and we will log out. I hope you guys learned something from this tutorial. This was a really long tutorial, but you learn a lot of things from this tutorial. You learn how to make the login page, registration, and a lot of things you learn from this video. If you learned something useful from this video, make sure to press the like button, subscribe to my channel, and maybe share it with your friends. And once again, if you have any question, just let me know at the comment below or go to my website mysqlpower.net, and there you can contact me if you want to do a project with me or something like that. And that's it, my dear friends. That's it. Have a great time.